Once upon a time, there was a squirrel friend who had their own little space. But they were very aware that they lived in a city with red spires, and that city was the home of a very diverse group of citizens. Every day she read her newspaper because it was very important to know what was happening in the world. And what was happening in the world affected their sense of self. They had 2 newspapers, one local and one regional, because the larger world was never far from their thoughts. And in fact, here's a postcard in the mail, because it's really important to have a wide network. The institutions, the cities, the communities, these are all things that helped us survive back in the day when being a part of the pack could be the difference between life and death. If you strayed from the pack, you could be eaten in the wilderness. And that was a very scary thought. Someone who lives with a deep awareness of what is the social subtype will not only care about their sense of belonging in a group, but how other people may or may not feel included, empowered, or left out. It doesn't matter that they have their own city that makes them feel safe with their own community of very diverse people. That's not quite enough. They need to know that other people in the world have the same, even other kinds of rodents. And so they will get involved in projects that help the mice, who are not squirrels, but would also like their own little domain. They will be aware of the gatekeepers of society, and they will understand that sometimes politicking is necessary, and that we have to pay attention to who can help us when we need some power. In fact, without the protection of those gatekeepers, some of the most vulnerable may not be able to be served because, as we saw earlier, there are always predators looming about. And so, how do you love a friend who has a high social subtype? Ask who their people are. Ask who their community is, what makes them feel like they belong, and what difference they feel like they make in the wider community. That is how you love someone with a social subtype. If they are really stressed about a conflict in their church, don't dismiss that as, oh, well, I'm glad you're not there anymore. Or maybe you should find another church and just take a break. Really sit down and unpack what went down. What does this conflict say about the church as a whole? What does the power structure and the injustice of what happened in this church say about society as a whole? Are there ways that this particular community reflects larger unfairnesses and injustices in the world? Because they will tell you what they see, and they will put the big picture together. If they are really, really grieving leaving that church behind, don't say, I'm sure God has a better place for you, or I'm sure no church is perfect. Really see that as a loss of their own identity. They don't see themselves as someone who happened to go to that church. They might see themselves as having invested a whole lot of what they cared about into that community, hoping that the community would also invest in them, believe in them, stand up for them, and care for them. So, do not discount the fact that they are now perhaps out of an unhealthy environment. No, it's a loss. It's a true loss. And if they talk about a wonderful day where they got together with their friends and everybody came to a better understanding of what it means to be someone on top, what it means to be someone on the bottom. And maybe they saw how actually someone who's small in the world is actually safer because they've created the Garden of Eden in their own way, and how someone who looks scary and powerful is actually just sad and lonely. Listen to them talk about that, because it's important to look at how the way we relate and understand dynamics shapes our perception of reality. Listen to them talk about how there's magic sometimes in a group, how there are ideas that come about that only can be co-created by the people who participate in those conversations. And the sprinkling of grace upon these communities is so important. It's not just about the fact that my friend who's like me is with me, and so we're just going to have our own conversation while everyone else does their thing. No, let's observe together what everyone else is doing. Let's talk about what we see going on in the wider world. Did you just notice that Mickey Mouse added a couch to the throne room? Oh yeah, I saw that. But it looks like Minnie is out in the garden. What do you think that means? Do you think that Minnie doesn't care as much about the couch and she likes to be out in the garden? Oh, maybe. Do you see how this conversation has nothing directly to do with our squirrel friends? But them both seeing what's happening in the larger picture is so bonding for them. That is what we call the social subtype. And magic happens when you can observe what's happening in the larger group dynamic and say, oh my goodness, why don't we invite them to our garden party? And let's let them come and look at our tulips, and maybe they can take a few petals home to put on their couch as a decoration. Wouldn't that be the best thing ever? Yes. Let's send a message to our friends on the other side and widen our community, because we are better together.